Is this more of a problem for the Bank of England or for the pension funds?
Yeah, well, it remains to be seen, really, how things are going to play out. At the moment, the Bank of England has a headache because it's not able to buy all of the bonds it wants to get its hands on. For pension funds, this is something that's been building for a long time. Their problem is, as yields come down across the gilts curve, that puts more pressure on them to try to increase the amount of assets that they're holding to match their liabilities. And so the Bank of England's programme is pulling yields ever lower. That's making it even more imperative on them to be holding on to things like longer-term government bonds.
So it sounds like something's got to give here. What could it be?
Well, there's a number of things that could change. I mean, so far we've only had this one failed operation from the Bank of England. It was a small amount, so we'll have another go next Tuesday, see how that goes. But assuming that things remain tight, there may be some changes that could happen that would alleviate the pressure on the pension funds. One thing they could do is change the calculations that they use for their liabilities. That's something that's happened, for example, in the Netherlands in recent years for their pension funds. Second option could be for the Bank of England to change the parts of the gilt market where it's buying to buy more shorter maturity bonds and leave off a little bit of that longer term debt. Third option could be for the government to consider selling more bonds and giving the pension funds more of what they want.
Paul, but explain this to us, because the irony is that there is no shortage of long-dated bonds in the market. What does this mean?
Yeah, well, the whole conundrum is that pension funds really need to match their liabilities, the future amounts that they're going to have to pay out to retirees. They need to match those against the stuff that they're holding within their portfolios. So they're very reluctant to give up the kind of bonds that they've been holding already for maybe as long as 10 or 15 years and tucked away in a kind of in an account where they know they've got predictable income coming in and they know what they're going to get at the end of the term. They have a huge amount of these bonds under their control, and yet they still have a very big shortfall in their portfolios, and so they're very reluctant to take any moves that could exacerbate the situation.
Paul, is this problem confined to the UK?
Well, that's an interesting question. What we're finding across the world, and certainly in all of my areas that I'm responsible for, is that the same problems are coming out for pension funds wherever they are. The problem is very low yields on longer-term bonds. You look at Japan, where 10-year yields are negative. You look at Germany, where 10-year yields are negative. The pension funds, you know, are struggling everywhere. And then again, in the US, we're looking at in the municipal markets, the pension funds there, for example, having to sort of fess up that they're not going to be able to make such big returns as they've been counting on because bond yields are low, because equities are going nowhere particularly fast. It's all adding to a kind of a real feeling of a global pressure at the moment on pensions.
Yeah, and I mean, we had Mohammed Al-Arian writing today on Bloomberg View about, you know, the titanic challenges for retirement funds. So, I mean, you've alluded to some of them there, but what are the other sort of implications for global markets and the global economy?
Yeah, I think from the bond perspective, you know, all those people that have been calling for a bond bubble, saying that the end is nigh for the 20-year, 30-year bond bull market that we've seen, have been having to, you know, recalculate or reassess their appreciation of what's going on in the market. The fact of the matter is there's huge demand for bonds, for the fixed payments that you can get off government debt, and for the safety that that offers. And so maybe over time that means that governments are going to be able to start loosening the purse strings a little bit more, just in order to get enough debt out there for all of these pension funds to own.
Paul, and at least for UK pension funds, given that it looks like this problem is not going to go away, what can be done to improve the situation for them?
Yeah, well, you know, as we were discussing some of the measures that could happen, I think one that's very interesting is the idea of more fiscal stimulus from the UK government. The administration that's taken over since the Brexit vote has talked about a large increase in government spending in terms of infrastructure projects and the such like, which could not only help keep the economy going, but it could also, you know, increase the pool of bonds out there for the pension funds to own, and in turn increase the pool out there for the Bank of England to buy.